All right, as I mentioned, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met today in Beijing with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, concluding a two-day trip the Biden administration hoped would ease tensions between the world's two superpowers. Now, following the meeting, the Secretary of State acknowledged that China did not agree to restore military-to-military communication channels as they had hoped. He also reiterated that the official U.S. One China policy does not support Taiwanese independence. Join me now to discuss this is Congressman Keith Self. He serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Self retired from the United States Army as lieutenant colonel, having served as a member of the Special Forces and Army Rangers. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Self, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Great to be here, Tony. Thank you.
So let me just get your initial reaction to what is coming out of Secretary of State's diplomatic trip to China.
Well, you have to ask why China even accepted this trip. I don't think he scored on either one of the major issues. One is Taiwan. China has frankly said they will take Taiwan by force if necessary. And the second one was the mill-to-mill communications. So whatever spin they put on it, I think he was probably called or accepted in Beijing for a message to leave Taiwan alone. And since we're 3 years behind on shipping the weapons to Taiwan that they've already purchased, I think we need to get a move on.
From your perspective, Congressman, I mean, who is in the position to be influencing activities between these two countries? Is America in a strong position, or is China in a strong position?
Well, I think the whole world is still looking at our absolutely disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. When the Biden administration did that, the entire world started testing us. For instance, Putin started moving troops toward Ukraine within weeks of our withdrawal from Afghanistan. China's aggressive actions have increased since then. Iran has tested us. North Korea has tested us. You see countries around the Middle East looking for another partner other than the U.S. because I think they don't think they can trust us right now.
We're hearing repeatedly from the Biden administration, in fact, the secretary made these comments, we want competition but not conflict. Does China want the same thing?
I don't think so. I think China is at war with us, both psychologically and economically for certain. The fentanyl coming across the border, and I understand that was one of the issues that the secretary wanted to make some progress on and did not. We know that the precursor chemicals coming out of China go into Mexico and then are put into pill form or simply shipped across the border. So I think they're already at economic and psychological war with us and hope to win without firing a shot, because war does not always include the kinetic firepower that we're used to.
Right. Has America been as forceful as we should in demanding answers about the coronavirus? I mean, my take on this is that shows weakness by us being afraid to really go to the source of this problem and hold China accountable.
No, we obviously haven't. That is something that I hope that Congress continues to lead on and get some answers, because no, we've not been forceful in the least. That's not the word. We've been very weak on that issue as well with China. We need to be, no one questions the fact that it came out of China. We need to get answers as to why and where and how. And no, we're not forceful on that issue.
Congressman, I want to go back to the president's comments on Saturday on the tarmac there, where he said that the Chinese leadership was more embarrassed than anything else about the balloon because they didn't actually know where it was and what it was doing. Do you buy that?
Absolutely ludicrous. That is a ludicrous statement. Of course not. Any thinking American knows that that balloon wandered. In fact, it turned Circle 8s over one of our nuclear bases. When you do that, someone is controlling the balloon. No, absolutely not. He doesn't believe it, and the American people should not believe it. That balloon was a spy balloon, out and out, controlled across the United States.
Why do you think the president would make that statement?
because they believe, the progressive left believes whatever they tell the American people. That's their mantra. They project what onto us what they are doing, and they think that the American people will believe whatever they tell them to believe.
I mean, that it is ludicrous to think that this balloon that traveled all across the United States, that the head of the Chinese Communist Party had no idea that it was there, no idea what was on board, and that it was looking at some of America's sensitive military sites. I mean, I'm not sure who believes that, other than maybe those who watch MSNBC.
I don't think anyone believes it anymore. I mean, we watched the balloon go across the entire United States, across some of the least populated land in this country, and they refused to shoot it down, ostensibly because it might hurt someone. It might hit a cow, it might hit a fence, but it was not going to hurt anyone. That was also ludicrous reasoning that they gave the United States population, the people, the citizens, and then they shot it down after it left our airspace. That was another embarrassing incident as far as I'm concerned.
Congressman, we're up against a break, so I'm going to hold my next question, but this is it. When we come back on the other side of the break, I want to ask you about, as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and you made reference to this earlier, that China is aggressively recruiting to pull nations their way. I want to talk about some of our foreign policy priorities and how that may actually be driving some of these countries into the arms of China. We're going to talk about that and the Army's failure to recruit, meeting recruiting standards, blaming it on those who are raising concern about the woke policy. China is working aggressively to pull nations into kind of fellowship with them as opposed to the United States. And when you look at some of the top priorities of our foreign policy coming out of the State Department, the LGBTQ agenda and everything, that flies in the face of many conservative religious nations. Is this affecting our foreign policy?
Absolutely. There are two, that and the climate change, the demands for action on climate, I think are the two main issues that are driving nations away from us. But China is also making a very aggressive push around the world, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, both in South America and in Africa. They go in, they give low-cost loans, poorer countries accept them, and all of a sudden they're in a debt trap. So our policies, and frankly, I'm not sure that people trust us these days because of Afghanistan, because of our open borders. They just don't see us as a legitimate, a reliable ally. So the trust factor, I think, is also very much a part of the fact that China is having some success wooing countries to their side.
Yeah, I can see that occurring as well. When you talk about climate change, there's really a trifecta for the left coming out of the State Department. It's abortion, it's the LGBTQ policies, and climate change. But when you talk about these poorer nations that China is reaching to in the Southern Hemisphere, these are nations that are really kind of dependent, and I'm not a big fan of our foreign dollars that we're putting into these countries, but what's happening is this administration is putting strings on that foreign aid, saying you don't get it unless you change policies related to abortion, LGBTQ, and climate change. And that's where China has an open door.
You're exactly right. And frankly, what you've just mentioned is happening in South America and Africa to a great degree. Now, countries are starting to understand the debt trap. They'll never be able to pay it back. China simply extends the loans and may lower the interest rate, but they are in a debt trap that they cannot repay. So at the end, Tony, I believe that freedom wins if we can just change our policies to do away with that trifecta. I still believe that freedom wins. We just need to change our policies, and people will understand that we truly are a beacon of freedom if we can change our policies.
Well, changing policies would require a change of personnel in many cases. Let's talk personnel for a moment, Colonel. Retired from the United States Army, you know something about the Army. You serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee as well. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth lashed out at Republicans for basically drawing attention to the fact that the woke policies of the Army are inhibiting their recruiting. I mean, they were 15,000 recruits short last year, and it looks like they're going to fall short again this year. Is it the fact that you're drawing attention to those woke policies, or is it the woke policies themselves?
It's the policies themselves, without a doubt, Tony. Look, 0.7% of our population is in the military today. 0.7%. I served in the military with some of the finest soldiers in the Army, in the 82nd Airborne and the Green Berets. And I have to tell you, people that join the military want to join something larger than themselves. Mm-hmm. They want the challenge. They want the camaraderie. They want to do something that is important to our nation. And these woke policies are not. I vehemently disagree with the secretary. I think that she's got it backwards. She's not attracting the people who want to put a rucksack on their back, who want to deploy to the field, who want to deploy to the latest area of conflict, who want the challenge. I vehemently disagree with the secretary.
Congressman, I only served for about 6 years in the Marine Corps. You retired from the Army, but my experience was that, and I think the numbers actually bear this out, that those who volunteer to serve, as you said, it's a very small percentage of our society that serve in the military. They're drawn disproportionately from conservative areas of the country. People, and a lot of them coming with what I would describe as a Christian ethic of what Jesus said, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friends. So there's a disproportionately higher percentage of those who serve in the military that come from a faith background, and these policies are an anathema to many of them.
You're exactly right. I truly believe that until we have revival in this country, until we have a civic conscience because there is a greater power than the federal government controlling you, until our Christian faith is no longer under attack, until we are able to exercise it, not just inside the church walls, but in daily life, I think you're going to continue to see the woke policies hurt our government and our nation across the board.
Are we at a critical juncture where we have to act now to see this ship righted?
Tony, the question I ask all the time is, where is God's red line with America? Just like he had a red line with Belshazzar and wrote on the wall. Where is God's red line for America today? I don't know where it is. I don't know the mind of God, but I'm very concerned that we could be approaching that red line. We need revival in our nation.
Congressman, I could not agree more. I don't want to find out where that red line is, but like you, I do believe we're getting awful close to it. Congressman Keith Sell, thanks so much for joining us today. Always great to see you.
Great to see you, Tony. Thank you.